Well, hello everybody, this is an introductory video to the Spring framework. In this video I'm going to describe different parts of the Spring ecosystem and explain what are they needed for. This video is for those who are just starting learning Spring and want to structure their knowledge, or for those who just a bit lost in the huge amount of the content about Spring and don't know where to start or what to learn. I will try to highlight things that are important and make kind of a learning map for you. In this video won't be many technical details, as I said, just an overview. So let's go. To begin with, I want to say that Spring is an amazing framework and almost every Java web app is using some part of it. In general, the idea behind Spring is to make developers' life easier, and different parts of the framework are created to overcome different issues. Here are the topics that I'm going to discuss with you today, and of course we are going to start with the Spring Core. So Spring Core, as you can understand from the name, is the heart of the framework. Basically what Spring Core does, it takes the responsibility of managing Java objects from us to itself. Well, it's basically the meaning of inversion of control principle. So Spring Core creates, manages and connects Java objects, or so-called Spring Beans. In this sense, developers just need to properly configure Spring Beans. So I suggest you start from learning how to configure a Spring Bean using different ways: Java, XML and annotations, because this is indeed an essential part of the framework. So Spring MVC is used to create web apps or web servers. It represents model view controller pattern, where controllers handle requests to our application through the internet. You need to understand how dispatcher servlet works, what's the differences between controller and the REST controller. Also, there is such thing as Spring templates that can create web pages for the users, but I would say that it's quite rare case. Also, if you don't familiar with REST web services, I think you should really read about that too before starting working with Spring MVC framework. Spring Security. Well, it secures our web server. There are two main things how it does that. First is authentication. This is a simple check of login and password. Here are several ways how you can implement this check. Second thing is authorization. To explain that better, imagine that on our website you could be a user or an admin. So before you get a data from the specific web page, Spring Security will check whether your role is allowed to access to this data. Thus, users with a role user won't get access to the data that are only allowed to be seen by the admins. Next is Spring Data. Well, as I said, Spring was created to make developers' life easier. So if any of you are familiar with JDBC or Hibernate, you know that it was quite painful to write all those SQL or HQL queries to get your data from the database. So Spring Data takes this from the developer to itself. Two main things here: transaction management and data repositories. Data repositories basically will make most of the queries to your database instead of you. And transaction management will handle all the transactions that will happen with those queries. Really useful tool, and I would say quite easy to learn. So Spring Boot. I would say that this is a wrap around all the previously discussed Spring artifacts. What it does, it makes all the configuration needed to use Spring Core, Spring MVC, or Spring Data, or Spring Security, and makes it for us. There is also a really cool thing as Spring Initializer that gets all the needed dependencies for you. But I would suggest at first you don't use Spring Boot, just to try to make a configuration yourself, but then you start using it. Definitely check out what Spring Boot application annotation does, trying to understand what Spring Boot starters do, and check out Spring Boot Actuator. This is quite a cool thing. Last but not least, Spring Cloud. Well, I would say that it is rather advanced tool. It is used to create microservice architecture, and you should definitely start learning that after you are rather confident with all other parts of Spring framework. Well, that's pretty much it, what I wanted to tell you today. This is my first attempt to make this kind of video, so please share your opinion in comments. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Here are some learning materials. First website you probably know, but if you have any questions regarding Spring, you will find an answer there. Next, really cool books. First, in general about Spring, and second, about microservices. Again, thanks for watching, and if you're interested, I will try to make a series of videos that explain different parts of Spring framework in much deeper sense than today. Have a nice day.